Everybody says we need a better world. The point is, how do we get there? This is By Any Means, a podcast about how we build a better world. Today we have Colten Barnaby, a Christian atheist who is using his deep-seated powers and knowledge of the gospel to help brighten the minds of the Christian right in America, to take them out of a reactionary and deeply detestable worldview into the light of Christ. Okay, we got Colten Barnaby on the pod. Colten is a mutual of mine, friend of the show, friend of Means Workwear, who is an ex. Yeah, he is an ex. Honestly, I don't even know how to explain you.
Yeah,
please,
what the hell am I?
Yeah, what the hell are you, dude?
Content-wise, like the way I put myself out there into the world, I call myself a Christian atheist, or a Christian that doesn't believe in God, which really pisses off the evangelicals. They don't like it at all. And I'm a socialist. I'm somebody who's just deeply committed to the collective liberation of the world. I believe we need an international proletarian revolution. And I'm trying to do whatever I can to move us in that direction, even though we might be planting seeds under the shade of the trees that we won't live to sit under, you know?
100%. Yeah, I always think about it as just keeping the torch of liberation alive to hand to the people behind us.
Yeah, bro. Did you ever grow up in church or anything like that at all?
There was a time where they tried to make me do that, and I went to like Christian summer camp one time.
Okay. We had a song that we would sing in Sunday school. Oh, nice. But so there was a song we used to sing in Sunday school called "This Little Light of Mine." A lot of people, even that aren't in the church, might have heard it, right? This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I won't hide it under a bushel. No, I'm gonna let it shine. When you said that about keeping the torch of liberation alive, that's honestly kind of how I always think about it. That exact metaphor, like this, you have this little light. I'm not gonna hide it under a bushel. I ain't gonna let Satan and the fascists blow it out. We got to keep this torch lit. So I like that visual that you gave.
Okay, so Christian atheist, term that I'd never heard before we talked. The thing that I love about it is, like on the left, we always talk about Jesus being a communist. He's got all these fucking elite quotes. And the teachings of Christ always feel very antithetical to the U.S. Christian cohort. So what does it mean to be a Christian atheist?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a lot less sexy than like someone might assume. Like it sounds like really controversial, but like because you can have Christian atheism. There is a thing called Christian atheism, and it's not necessarily what I mean. Like Zizek has a book called Christian Atheism, and what Zizek is saying, which I don't necessarily agree with, it's just not what I mean particularly when I say it, is that for him, the only way you can truly be an atheist is to be a Christian. That Christianity is the only religion that really brings about atheism because it's the only religion where God dies in the story. And so for Zizek, Jesus dies on the cross, God dies on the cross. And in that moment of him dying, Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? And he says that that's the moment where God himself realized he had been abandoned by God and that there was no God. There is no mystical future coming to save us. Like our future is in our hands. What I mean by Christian atheist isn't like necessarily that complicated, although I think that's an interesting reading. But I'm a Christian, very much so culturally. Here's how I feel about it. If Bibi Netanyahu can be a Jew and be an atheist, then why the fuck can't I be a Christian and be an atheist? I get it. Like the cultural identity isn't necessarily so there isn't such strong cohesion to the religion in terms of like a broad sense, but it is for me. I'm a fourth generation Pentecostal pastor's kid, right? Like my father's a Pentecostal pastor, grandfather, my great grandfather was one of the first Pentecostal pastors. All my cousins, all my family, all my friends, the whole world that I grew up in was not just Christian, but this very specific kind of Christian. All of my music, all of my stories for, how I think about the world and understand things. Like we're talking about, keeping the torch of liberation alive. And I'm thinking this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. That's some Christian ass shit if I ever heard it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so at the same time, at some point, I stopped believing in God. I was just telling you, I just put a reel out today where I said that the most, the best way I can honor God is by being honest about my unbelief in God. And that the most blasphemous thing I ever did was pretend to believe. Because for years, James, I didn't really believe in God, but I was on staff at churches. I was on staff at a Hillsong church. If you ever heard of Hillsong, but they're kind of a popular cultural touchstone.
Okay.
And I was performing this belief. There's a scripture where a character reaches out, is seeking for healing for his son to Jesus, and he says, "Lord, I believe, help my unbelief." And for years I prayed that prayer, but I knew it wasn't true. I knew I didn't believe, help my unbelief. I didn't believe. And so at one point I switched that prayer around, and I just said, I was honest with myself, honest with God, and I just said, "Lord, I don't believe. I don't believe, but if you are Lord, help my disbelief." And there was like something very freeing in that honesty. I was talking to you about Simone Weil earlier. I never know if I'm saying German and French people's names right. So it might be Simone
No,
Weil,
because
might
of
be
their
Simone
atrocities,
Weil.
we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Fuck 'em. But she's got this quote. She's a French Christian mystic, died in 1940s. But she said, listen to this quote: "For it seemed to me certain, and I still think so today, that one can never wrestle enough with God if one does so out of pure regard for truth. Because Christ likes us to prefer truth to him, because before being Christ, he is truth. So if one turns aside from God to go towards truth, one will not go far before falling into his arms." And so I don't really have like a strong conviction about whether there is or isn't a God. I'm just being honest that I don't believe in God. Maybe there is a God. If I, for some reason, I could believe in God again someday. I don't know. I don't have a preoccupation with like convincing people God doesn't exist. I just don't believe in God. And that is my pursuit of truth and my desire to be honest. If there is a God, I think what Vail is saying there, if there is a God worth believing in, then that would have to be true of them, right? Like somebody running away from truth. Because the Christian tradition, is very rooted in like Neoplatonic thought of understanding like God as this fundamental principle, not as a being. Now, most modern American Christians think of God as like a creature in our taxonomy of beings who's just stronger and more powerful than anybody else. But classical Christian theism, you go back to Aquinas, the Cappadocian Fathers, they didn't think about God as a person or as a being. God was the ground of being,
Fabric of the cosmos.
the fabric of the cosmos, right? Not impersonal, not like a deistic God, but personal in a different sense than you or me. They have a will, but not a deliberative will like you and me. They're the ground of that which all will and personality it comes out of. And so it has fundamental traits like goodness, truth, beauty, love, right? And so if God is those things, I don't believe in God as like a taxonomical construct in our world, but I do believe in those things. And if that's what we're saying God is, then I think Simone's right. I haven't walked away from God at all. In fact, I might be closer to God as an atheist than I ever was as a believer.
Yeah, there's also something I was thinking about Joseph Campbell while you were saying that, and there's a sort of like philosophical worldview that comes out of some of his more like religious writings. You could see it. There's that comic Pete Holmes, and he gets a sort of like a sense of cosmic oneness. There's also another thing that I was thinking about, when you think about it through the lens of the fabric of the cosmos, they did these studies on people that were on psychedelics, hallucinogenics, because they're like, you're so tapped in, you're so like whatever, that you would imagine that your brain activity is flaring up. It's kind of going crazy when you're on like mushrooms or peyote or any of the really fun drugs that everyone listening should try. But what they did, when they did these brain scans, they actually found that there was like almost no brain activity, or like very, very minimal, sort of like your core biological functions kind of brain activity. And the assumption coming out of that, or you know, like, the scientific sort of truth coming out of that is that most of your brain activity is actually separating yourself from the immensity of experience. You know, it is actually the point of narrowing and focusing, and effectively taking yourself, individualizing yourself from the cosmic fabric in a weird way.
Yeah, perceiving yourself as a discrete psychological subject.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know why, but there was just something in there that I was like, because there's like in sort of like the New Age spiritualism, the sort of like Alan Watts bit. It's sort of deconstructing that notion to understand yourself as anyone and everything, which, you know, I think is probably a core element in a lot of the global religions, is that kind of truth.
Yeah, there's pantheism, and then you have this idea of panentheism, which is like the difference between everything is God and all things are in God, which is a very actually scriptural idea. As some theologians have called it pan-in-Christism, that all things are in Christ. Because Paul talks about, in him all things live and move and have their being, that everything exists within this cosmic makeup, or this cosmic structure. Anyways, we're getting
into the weeds.
To me, it's like I can't separate myself from my cultural background and heritage, and from like this story. What else would I be? Do I need to go construct some alternate version of myself with different narratives and different stories for understanding the world? Or can I just, have my culture and, have it the way it is? And I also think I can be, when we talk about what can we do for liberation, I can do more operating inside that framework, I think, than I possibly could outside of it. And because I think there's a tremendous amount of potential. Christianity is a loaded gun. And whoever gets it, right? Like, I remember going from being a shit lib that was like, we have to ban all guns, to being like, how much are the dues for the Socialist Rifle Association? Like thinking about like, okay, how can we, instead of being like, oh, those tools are used to hurt people, how could we go, whoa, how could we get our hands on that trigger? How could we put our finger on that trigger?
There's something to say also about some of the most influential revolutionary leaders of the past 50 years being deeply ingrained in, one or the other Abrahamic faiths. So
absolutely huge. I mean, the history, it's very hard to square. Now, some people say like, if you're an evangelical, it's very easy to be a capitalist, because evangelicals don't often, and this isn't a hard and fast rule, but more or less, they like to stick to sola scriptura, which is different than sola scriptura. It's sola scriptura, like the doctrine of like the reformers, was scripture primally and then the tradition on top. Sola scriptura is like, they don't even give a fuck about the Christian tradition, the church fathers, what anybody else said. It's just me and my Bible. When you have just me and my Bible, it is 100% prima facie. You are bringing, it's a tabula rasa document. You give me a Bible and an ideology to defend, and I will find you an airtight list of scriptures to defend that ideology. Because the scripture isn't univocal. Scripture is written by dozens of people over thousands of years in various formats, right? Various types of literature. But when you pair it though with the Christian tradition, and historically, it becomes very hard to defend capitalism, in my opinion, when you look at the way the first century Christians were reading it. Because here you have a group of people that were trained. You go back to like the earliest church documents, you have the people who are 1 or 2 generations removed from the apostles and from Jesus, right? And they're writing commentaries on the scripture, interpreting it for you. And there are a lot of differences there, but those are mostly on the metaphysics. On the applied reality, on the applied living, dog, it's almost universal. It's like, nothing belongs to you. Anything that people need should be held in common. The Christian is not allowed to own extra things. If you have anything beyond what you need, you only possess it temporarily so that you can give it to somebody who needs it. And if you don't, the church fathers are pretty unanimous in saying you are robbing from the poor. Like even up to Thomas Aquinas literally says that if there is need, not just you, but if you know of somebody else in need, you're in need, or you got a partner in need, or a neighbor in need, and you take something from somebody who has excess, whether they know it or not, whether it's, which he defines as stealing is, theft is stealing without them knowing, and robbery is stealing with them knowing, right? He's like, no matter what, if you take from somebody with excess to give to somebody in need, yourself or somebody else, it's neither theft or robbery, because it already belongs to you. And in fact, it's the person who isn't giving it up freely who's the one stealing from you, because God created all things for his creation, not to be held and accumulated. The scripture is full of woes to the rich, right?
Yeah, there's a really, really amazing group of proto-communists in England in the 16th century. They were called the Diggers.
The true levelers. The
levelers, led by Gerard Winstanley. He wrote a book called The Common Treasury, talking about,
it's dope.
Yeah.
Tell the people, James. Tell the people about it.
Well, I mean, you could garner from what it's called, a common treasury. He's talking about the earth as effectively the common property of all beings that reside on it. God ordained and gave us land as a group, as a people, and he's basically creating like a judicio-theological justification for the abolition of private property. So if anyone wants to read that, it is an incredible piece.
They were their praxis. I know we want to talk about praxis in this podcast. Their praxis was radical and revolutionary, right? Like they didn't just say this shit. They were called the true levelers or the diggers because they would go and literally level the fences and the walls that were built around the farmland that people needed. They would tear them down and just reclaim them as common property. And they would just start like planting and tilling the ground. And he beefed, one of my favorite things about Winstanley is he beefed hard with Martin Luther, right? Because they're all in the Reformation. And he would be like, he's basically like Martin Luther's a bootlicker. Like he's up here with all of the government officials and all these people. He betrayed the people. He ain't a real one. So yeah, definitely y'all should look into Gerard Winstanley and the Diggers.
Yeah, the historical context that comes out of is actually incredibly important too, because it's at the birth of agrarian capitalism inside of England. For those that don't know, capitalism has a starting point. It's not just when we started buying and selling things. And the thing that really set it off was a particular shift in a legal arrangement inside of England. If you look at Portugal or Spain or France, in these feudal arrangements, the entire bit about it is that the aristocracy, the feudal lords, had their own militaries. And what ended up happening was England centralized the militaristic capacities of the state. And what they offered what was just the feudal arrangement was they said, okay, we're going to take the powers of the military under our overarching banner, and what we're going to give you in lieu of that is really rigid property rights. And there is a basically 2-century project of moving from what you'd call private property to exclusive private property. And this is the thing that Marx talks about, the rights to the forest. When he is early on as a journalist, he's seeing these peasants, which used to have a right to go effectively scavenge in the forest and get fallen logs and various things, because those were no longer the lord's property, because they had sort of left the trees, and now all of a sudden you go from private property to exclusive, where now those those aristocratic lords or owners said, actually, no, all of it is mine in exclusivity without you, and we will penalize. And so Winstanley is seeing the shift for that, where no longer people have any legal ties to any of this stuff, and they are being removed from they're being proletarianized over like 2 or 3 centuries. And he's like, how about that? Fuck this shit. That fence you just built, that's coming down, brother.
And he's rooted firmly in the Christian tradition. See, I think it's very hard to, and some people say like, well, you can't, Leninist Marxist Leninism isn't, it doesn't square scripture either. If you concede that point too, it doesn't get you around like, okay, but yeah, great. Let's have all the Christians be some softer form of socialists, but none of y'all can be capitalists. I'd rather work with that,
Yeah, well, I mean, also as a materialist, battling in this world of ideas, it's materially true that religion exists. It's,
yes.
Like whether God exists or religions are right is its own thing, and we can all firmly reject that. But religions exist, and followers of religions exist in such large numbers that to not engage with it in a major capacity is
100%.
both anti-materialist and leaving money on the table. For lack of
money on the table.
For lack of better
never
word
leave
right
money on the table. I have people frequently say to me some variation of, why are you still even talking about Christianity? You should just dismantle Christianity. And I'm always like, yeah, let me just go dismantle global religion really quick. That'll be easy.
BRB, right? Gonna go dismantle.
Let me just go dismantle all of Christendom, real quick. When in reality, and I think people think you can't persuade people out of it. I think, James, like there's like a step that people take from you can't change everybody's mind to you can't change anybody's mind, which is just wild to me. And I was just reading about this guy. I'd never heard of him before. He was an itinerant evangelist, tent revival preacher, Methodist preacher in in the early 1900s, like 1908, 1909. And his name was G.G. Hamilton. He was in Oklahoma. So he was like primarily in Oklahoma and Texas. He went around, his primary thing was debating socialists because there was a growing socialist movement amongst the farmers in that time, right? So his primary thing was going around and debating socialists. And he was known to be that guy, like that capitalist defender who would just annihilate people.
Early Charlie Kirk. Love this guy.
Early Charlie Kirk. He debates one guy who has him read Walter Rauschenbusch's book, The Gospel, the Social Gospel, something like that. It's escaping me right now. He reads the book, does the first and second debate hard, shows up for the third debate in the series because there's like a week of tent revival services every night, a different debate. And these Oklahoma farmers, they're driving 50 miles on the road conditions and the vehicles that they had back then to get to these meetings. Like that's how much people wanted.
That's what not having Netflix does to a motherfucker.
Yeah, for real. That's what not having memes TV does. And so he will go on the third debate. He gets up on stage and he says, I was wrong. And he converts to socialism on the stage in front of everybody. He commits the rest of his life to doing like tent revival style debates against Christian capitalists, just like demolishing them. And he converts like hundreds, thousands of farmers across Texas and Oklahoma to socialism.
Which on is the like third amazing. Day, Charlie Kirk became a communist. I love it.
It would be like that. It would be like Charlie Kirk waking up one day and be like, I'm a communist now.
I mean, I think there's another thing before we get into, because I really want to talk about the article that you came out with a couple days ago, which there's 2 things you said that I want to respond to. The first is there's a difference between you can't convince, how'd you say, anyone versus... You can't
convince everybody.
Anyone.
You can't convince anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's something between saying like, I can take someone who's not ready and make them and convert them. That's the I can't convince everyone, and that's very true. It's an idealistic thing to assume that just by putting the right ideas forward that people are going to see the truth. But as a materialist, we know that there is a large swath of people that are open to the things, and it is our job to give them the articulable truth, to articulate the thing that they're experiencing. And the other side about abolishing Christendom or something like that, this is straight from fucking Marx. we talk about religion is the opiate of the masses, the second part of that quote is he said, it's the heart in a heartless world. It's this thing that is needed in the current socioeconomic and material landscape. When there is an extreme lack, it is the thing you go to ease suffering, to give meaning to the meaningless. And so if you're so anti-religion that you want to abolish Christendom, then you have to devote your life to the fight for socialism, to provide the material baseline so that you don't need to seek an end to suffering or that liberation outside of the material plane.
Yes, absolutely. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that I could have learned all the same things that I've learned. And if I had learned them in a different set of material conditions, like if my life had just been slightly different, it wouldn't have taken, right? Like I tell people all the time, I went to Oral Roberts University, the school founded by Oral Roberts, the guy who invented seed faith, kind of like prosperity gospel, like that healing evangelist nut job. It's a clown school, right? I went to clown college. And if I hadn't though, I would be a right-wing televangelist apologist today. That's what I would be doing, because I was so ready to go to a secular school and debate all of my atheist professors and convince them that evolution wasn't real. But when I showed up to this Christian university where my biology professor spoke in tongues, was a tongue-talking Pentecostal Christian, but he was like, oh yeah, the earth is billions of years old. It's not, he's a biologist. He's not an idiot. You know what I mean? All of a sudden my mind opened a little bit more. And then this professor, this Catholic Pentecostal professor that I had, is a socialist as well. I thought socialism was evil. What do you mean? It's so the conditions had to be right for me to even hear and receive that message at all.
Yeah. I think sometimes someone that's with you needs to put a couple cracks in your foundation for you to break through to another perspective or some kind of space.
I had to become a shitlib before I could become a socialist,
Yeah. Well, so now you're doing the thing because you came from the Christian. You're like, actually, this is my circus and these are my monkeys.
Yeah.
And now I got to corral them.
Exactly.
Okay. So you, maybe a week ago, you put out a rather, a controversial title. You said, America's a demonic nation. This is your article on your Substack. And if you guys get the chance, or you haven't already, please go subscribe to Colten's Substack, Kensington Cone by Colten Barnaby. Puts out stuff regularly, and it is always really well researched, really well written. And if you come from the religious tradition at all, I think it'll provide immense insight and rhetorical weaponry for conversations with your family and friends. But yeah, would you mind giving us...
I think about my Substack as an armory. It's so funny that you said that. I think I'm trying to provide the weapons and tools that people need, like the equipment you can come and take some of this and go. I'm so glad you said that.
No, for sure. I mean, before I got into the space of content creation, I was like a commenter, I mean, luckily I went to a really cool school that gave me most of the weapons that I needed, but sharpening my arguments happened in comment sections, because you can only forecast what people are going to respond so much if you're not in it, and luckily for you, you were in it for 18 years, 19 years, really heavily, and that gives you a lot. 30? Wait, how old were you when you really 30 when you shifted?
32 when I I think at 31 I was working at a Hillsong church.
Most of the time when you see a white person, you can guess their age. The whites, what we gained in imperial domination, we lost in the ability to age gracefully and beautifully. But I think your shift out of it maybe offered you youth.
It might have. I left the church, proclaimed my atheism, lost 160 pounds, and started looking younger. That's the actual trajectory. Yeah.
God said, you don't believe in me? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's look smacks this man real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. No bone mashing.
In this piece about Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of By Any Means. To watch the full episode, make sure to go to means.tv. Love and solidarity, comrades.